Hi Morag, how's it going?
Oh, I'm fine, Michael. How are you?
I'm fine, except I'm slightly troubled by the fact that I read recently that David Cameron would like to restart hunting, fox hunting. Can I just read you the quote here? The Hunting Act has done nothing for animal welfare. A Conservative government will give Parliament the opportunity to repeal the Hunting Act on a free vote with a government bill in government time. Now, whenever I read about the case for hunting, it's divided into two. There's a moral side of it and there's a practical side to it. We should start on the practical side of it because they often say that, this is done to keep fox numbers down and to protect other little animals, and foxes are such a terrible danger and so on. What's your response to that?
Well, foxes are a natural part of the country ecosystem. They're very good at keeping rabbit numbers down. They're often accused of taking lambs, but actually they're more likely to scavenge lambs that were already dead. They do take chickens, but it's not that difficult to fox-proof a chicken coop. Foxes are simply part of the ecosystem in the landscape, and there's no particular reason to want to keep them down. They're smart, they're useful, and they look good in the countryside as part of the general flora and fauna.
So there's no practical reason for limiting their numbers.
Indeed, no. In fact, you find that if a fox hunt finds that the fox numbers are rather low in their area, they're rather inclined to go and try and restock with foxes in order to keep them going for their sport.
So if there's no good practical reason for it, we should talk about the moral case against it because it seems to me a very, very savage sport.
Well, the excuse or the justification has often been, well, it's part of the countryside way of life. And that's exactly the same excuse as we hear from the Faroe Islanders that want to hunt whales. We hear it from the Canadians when they're clubbing to death baby seals. It's all about our way of life. In point of fact, you would have heard the same thing from people who were into badger baiting, for example, or hare coursing. Now, we managed to abolish badger baiting and hare coursing because these were sports that were undertaken by, let's face it, the lower classes. That was fine. Now we have a sport that's undertaken by the upper classes. We're being told that this is prejudiced and fight prejudice, fight the ban. That was the actual posters that they were showing. Now, it's no less barbaric to be ripping a fox to pieces than it is to be baiting a badger to pieces or clubbing a seal cub to death. It's simply that this is the chosen sport of a particular social group who are well organised, and certainly the sort of social group that David Cameron wants to get the votes from.
So you think it's very much a social class idea. But what does it say about the United Kingdom? Obviously, we are both Scottish independent supporters, but what does it say about the United Kingdom that in 2015 we're not beyond this?
From my own point of view, I can see animal welfare as being a work in progress. It's something that civilized nations get to grips with in an incremental manner. If we look at the way that, for example, the five freedoms idea has been developed for farm animal welfare is a gradually and constantly improving thing. Pet animal welfare is a constantly improving thing with, for example, things like declawing of cats and cropping of dogs' ears and so on that were previously common, docking of dogs' tails as well, being outlawed as public opinion has turned against these unnecessary mutilations. And it's the same with blood sports, that gradually civilization becomes more enlightened and animal welfare becomes a higher priority and something that people think about in a more sensitive manner. And this is just one more step on the road to hopefully a more civilized society with a more civilized attitude to animals. Whereas we've, as I said, outlawed badger baiting and hare coursing and so on, that this is the next one on the list. And we just have to work on these things as they come up and do our bit for our generation in improving the way we as human beings relate to the other animal species on the planet.
Absolutely, and animal welfare hasn't actually been a particularly big discussion in this election. What would you like to see more of on the table?
Well, I think we've got three aspects. We've got farm animal welfare, we've got pet animal welfare, and we've got wild animal welfare. And I think all of these come together because as human beings, we should be seeing the animal kingdom not simply as the ones we're pals with, the ones we eat, and the ones we watch going about their own business, but understand that they're all sentient beings with their own little lives to lead and their own concerns, and that if we have pet dogs, for example, we should no more imagine tearing a fox apart than we would imagine someone tearing our pet dog apart. And I think improving all sorts of animal welfare together is most important. In particular, I think in political terms, there is a difficulty with farm animal welfare because farm animal welfare costs money. And if we have poor animal welfare standards, it can allow our farm produce to become cheaper to produce than a country that's got higher animal welfare standards. Now, we actually have some of the highest animal welfare standards in Europe. And we need to be able to capitalise on that and to take advantage of the conscience of the consumer so that they will choose our products as being the high welfare products and in a Jamie Oliver sort of way reject the products that are maybe a bit cheaper but are coming from the lower welfare systems. And I think a lot more needs to be done to educate the public in terms of the different sorts of animal welfare system.
Thanks for coming on, Morag. That's been great.
Thanks. Bye.
If ever there were a party whose abject witterings deserved to be brought to a halt by the impact of a giant Monty Python foot, it's surely UKIP and its hogwash-spouting pinhead of a leader, Nigel Farage. His claim this week that the SNP is openly racist and fueling anti-English resentment in Scotland can be explained only as a desperate appeal for work on the comedy circuit, although if Nige is intending to have a go at the Edinburgh Fringe, I suggest he invests in a Kevlar onesie. It's a classic case of what head shrinkers call psychological projection, denying unpleasant impulses in oneself while attributing them to others, like a Brussels sprout enthusiast unleashing a mammoth fart in a lift and looking round accusingly at everyone else. Xenophobia has always been dear to kippers' hearts, even though some of them believe it's spelt with a Z, because it's easier than thinking up coherent policies. They don't even have to get elected to promote it. They just have to shake their fists and snarl convincingly, and craven lickspittles in the Tory and Labour parties will do their dirty work for them. Nigel won't be coming up to Scotland to explain himself, since, according to grand number-crunching guru Lord Ashcroft, he has a fight on his hands to win his target seat of South Thanet. With only a small number of floaters in UKIP's talent pool up here, the party's storytelling duties tend to be delegated to David Coburn, a bloke with the hide of a rhino, the grace of a hippopotamus, and the intellect of a flowerpot man. And, bizarrely, also an MEP, proof that proportional representation isn't all it's cracked up to be. David also has a strained relationship with the truth. In fact, he's just been indefinitely banned by Wikipedia after repeatedly editing his personal biography, 69 times in 6 days to be exact, to remove references to him comparing Scottish Government Minister Humza Yousaf to convicted terrorist Abu Hamza. Ooh, not racist, mister, just a joke, wink, wink. And mangling SNP candidate Tasmina Ahmed Sheikh's name in various sexist and derogatory ways. Voters of Falkirk, the only truth here is that in 7 days David's fate is in your hands. I'm sure you'll choose wisely.